right, so now we're going to talk about the hunter-gatherers. So hunter-gatherers are, at first we start with our Paleo Indians, which we talked about prior. Now we're going to talk about the hunter-gatherers and why there was a change between Paleo Indians or Paleo Americans to the hunter-gatherers. Well, it's just like climate change is a huge topic now, back then, over 10,000 years ago, climate change was happening then too. And it was a pretty significant change because during 2,000 years, there was massive change. There was a warming, it drastically changed the landscape, and not only did the land bridge no longer exist, well, it's underwater, but also the animals, the big game that the Paleo Indians, Paleo Americans were used to hunting and surviving off of, well, they were dying out, either because of climate change or because the Paleo Indians, since that was their primary food source, killed them all out. So it's one of the two. We can't point a finger at a specific one because, hello, we weren't there. We don't know for sure, but we can see the changes in the climate during that 2,000 years through geographical evidence. And then we can also see that now the Paleo Indians are now moving away from just hunting big game because they were dying off for one reason or another. And they had to start hunting smaller game. So what does that look like? What is this smaller game? Well, deer, moose, buffalo, things of which are still a substantial animal size, but not like the big mammoths that they had been used to hunting. And so how do we know that they had to make this change? So what proof do we have? We always want the proof, right? Well, their tools started changing. So before they had to have stronger weapons, something that would pierce through a mammoth's hide. Now they started working with arrowheads, spear tips, and eventually evolving to bow and arrow, which I don't think a bow and arrow would really take down a mammoth, but it does pretty darn good. There's people who still hunt deer and big game, our modern big game, with bow and arrow. So that was something that was more sustainable, and they needed to eat because up until this point there wasn't any they still didn't have domestication over plants. So they were still really surviving primarily on meat. So they had to start traveling and finding this smaller game to survive. However, because they had to expand and there weren't as many, there wasn't as much game as what they were used to, oh, we kill one big mammoth, we've got food for a while. They had to start diversifying. And while they hadn't started domesticating plants, they did start branching out to eating fish if they were on a coastal or a river bank, shellfish. They started eating more roots and berries, things that came from the earth, fruits, nuts, even grasses, versus just a primary meat diet. So that's definitely a huge change from paleo, big game came over from Asia, to now we have hunter-gatherers who are starting to chase wild game throughout and start adding to their diet, not just relying on meat for their food, so, or big game, but they start diversifying their diet. Don't we love all of these changes? And so we hear the paleo diet. Okay, that comes from the old. Paleo means old. Well, it's a Greek reference to meaning old. And so the old ways was all meat, which I'm kind of down for, but my stomach isn't. So it kind of changed things up a little bit.